Hello, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland. So in this video, I'm saying Ave atque vale to the late Baroness Shirley Williams, who was called to the great big debating chamber today at the age of 90. Someone who deserves much more of a valediction than Prince Philip. Someone who accomplished so much, but will be sadly overlooked because she's not of the blood royal. So her past will be very much overshadowed by Prince Philip, who died 3 days before her. So Baroness Williams, she was born in London in 1931. Her surname was Catlin. Never heard of anybody else with that surname before. Came from quite a distinguished family. Her mother's very notable as an authoress, Vera Brittain, the pacifist who famously published Testament of Youth about her experiences in the First World War and afterwards. So Vera Brittain was born in the English Midlands into an upper middle class factory owning family. Was at Oxford reading history when the Great War broke out. But as Vera Brittain said, it was something like a disruption, the most exasperating kind to her plans. She threw up her historical studies and became a nurse in the First World War. Her boyfriend was called up. He was killed in the First World War. So was her brother. But anyway, but she later got married, and that's obviously Shirley Williams's father she married. That Testament of Youth, I think, wasn't published for decades afterwards, and famously turned into an awe-striking film. But back to Shirley Williams herself, and she even had Vera Brittain as part of her name, had four names, if you see what I mean, as in Christian name, middle name, surname. Obviously then the married name Williams. So Shirley Williams, as she's best known, she was never wrathful, never morose. She was magnanimous, sincere, reasonable, debonair, just a thoroughly likable person, politics aside. So she grew up in an affluent family in London. She attended St Paul's Girls' School, which was one of the top girls' schools in the realm. She was evacuated to the United States during the Second World War, came back after the war. She went up to Oxford, I think Somerville, that's the college that Margaret Thatcher attended, because of course Oxford University is a federal system divided into 9 and 30 colleges. I'm not sure what she was reading, but she joined the Labour Club. The Labour Party was in the ascendant. The 1945 election had swept Labour to office with Clement Attlee as Prime Minister. They were building this new Jerusalem, this idyllic democratic socialist society. And I remember Sir Hartley Shawcross, the Attorney General at the time, said, "We are the masters now, and not just now, but for a very long time to come." And so it seemed that Labour was on a roll, although actually I managed to lose office for only 6 years. But that's another story. So she's part of the Labour Club whilst an undergraduate, and indeed was elected president of the Oxford University Labour Club, the first female president thereof. So she then studied in the United States on a Fulbright scholarship, as in founded by Senator William J. Fulbright, who was marvellous in terms of his benefactions, educational benefactions, but monstrous in terms of his racialism, signing the Southern Manifesto. But it wasn't wrong to accept it all the same. So she then returned to the United Kingdom. She was a journalist, and there weren't many female Fleet Street journalists back in those days. She was on the Financial Times, amongst other things. She took an intense interest in public affairs. She threw her hat into the ring in terms of political life. So she achieved much in that forum. She was elected Member of Parliament for Hitchin, which is in Hertfordshire, just a bit north of London. Not particularly strong territory for Labour, so it was quite an accomplishment to win, indeed hold that seat in several elections. She was in the cabinet in the end, Education Secretary. She was on the moderate wing of the Labour Party, so aghast by the Trotskyites who held sway in the party by the early 1980s. So she's one of the Gang of Four, along with Roy Jenkins, Dr. David Owen, and Roger, oh my goodness, I forgot his name, the fourth among equals, he called his autobiography, as in he's the least well-known of the four. I can't even remember the other bloke's name, sorry, who left, and they signed the Limehouse Declaration, as in Limehouse, London. That's where Clement Attlee had done his pioneering social work, which inspired him to join the Labour Party. So the Slimehouse Declaration, as some Labour tribalists called it, because they considered it treachery. They sounded the founded their Council for Social Democracy and then the Social Democratic Party. So meant to be a middle-of-the-road party, drawing upon the best elements of Labour and the Conservatives. Many people who joined it were political virgins, having never been a member of any political party. Opinion polls showed a very high desire for such a party. As they said, without a booming economy, we can't afford decent social services, and without decent social services, it's no point in having a good economy, because obviously we want to provide for people's needs when they can't provide for themselves. So, but anyway, the electoral results were very disappointing, despite some fantastic by-election victories. Famously, Glasgow Hill Head, thought to be a rock-solid Labour seat, which Roy Jenkins took by storm. And later, when he was ennobled, he chose to be Lord Jenkins of Hill Head, as in that constituency in Glasgow, later retaken for Labour by George Galloway in the 1987 general election. But anyway, so Shirley Williams, she was there with them. They got, I think it's 25% of the vote in the 1983 election, but only, 27 seats. So they had to give out 1% of the vote for each seat. So many near misses. Labour's only a shade ahead of them on 27% of the vote, but Labour got 209 constituencies. The 1987 election, similar story. The SDP went down a bit, Labour up a bit, and the SDP just didn't have many seats. The first past the post system, they just couldn't break through. It helped to split the anti-Conservative vote and hand a whole decade to the Conservative and Unionist Party. Well, she eventually lost her seat, and she went to the House of Lords, became Baroness Williams, and she was the Lib Dem leader in the House of Lords, a regular on Dispatch Box and these late-night political chat shows. She was on After Dark. So a good communicator, just a warm, amiable, thoroughly decent person who thought that Britain must retain nuclear weapons and just had to have sensible economic policies. It was ludicrous to try and nationalise everything in sight. That the free market can sometimes be a good thing. And you shouldn't overestimate the ability of the state to organise everything. She still wanted to work for the abolition of pauperism and so forth. So that was her, and I was privileged to see her speak at the Oxford Union Society nigh on 20 years ago. How I wish I'd met her. Well, she wed twice. She had but one daughter, some stepdaughters. Then her second husband died way back in 2003. So that's her. Shirley Williams should be sorely missed, who made a very considerable contribution to British public life, and was a commendable public servant. So please subscribe to my channel, and I urgently need donations to sustain the channel. You can donate at PayPal. You'll find me there at georgecallahan79@gmail.com. That's all lower letters. Callahan spelled Callallagan, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Right, that's all. Toodle pip.